Against the Grain with me, Abby, the Liverpool doula. Today, I've got my good friend Stevie, who is a hypnobirthing teacher, breastfeeding peer supporter, 1 to 3 home birth breastfed children. And today, we're going to be talking all about breastfeeding, the formula industry, why I'm against formula, and we're going to back it up with science, facts. It's not all just my opinion. And today's episode is all about truth. It's not about shame. It's not about guilt. It's about facts, because feeding is the most important foundation in your child's health. And I've got a few notes because I've got that much stuff written down. So we're going to talk about first, I'm going to talk about formula, and then we're going to move on to some breastfeeding education, facts, and why it really is the best thing for your baby. So formula isn't just another option, it's an industrial product born out of profit. So if you see any of these adverts on the TV, the marketing schemes, everything that the formula feeding industry does, I mean, how much budget? Billions. It's spent on advertising. Do you know how much it is to put an advert on mainstream TV every day? Absolute fortune. So my belief around formula feeding, it starts at birth. It breaks us down. It comes from the push from interventions, separating mother and baby. And then it's telling traumatized, exhausted women to bottle feed. Because when these women are broken by the industrial birth complex with their interventions and the trauma that they've put onto women, it's easier to give them a solution than it is for them to support natural physiology. And it is all about money. So I'm going to say right now, and I don't know, this is my different take on things. So you're a lot gentler in your delivery. Fed is not best. Birth is not best. It is the bare minimum to keep a child alive. And the formula industry has fed us an absolute corker of a lie. And they've really financially pushed this narrative that fed is best. It's not. It's the bare minimum to keep your child alive. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the UK infant formula regulations. And this is for all formulas across the board. So regulations dictate minimum and maximum levels of protein, fat, carbs, vitamins, and minerals in all formulas. And would you say that a lot of formula, people say, oh, cow and gate, this, they're all pretty much the same?
Yeah, you do have a lot of opinion about, which formula is better than the other. And in reality, Aftermilk and Cow and Gate are made by the same company. And everything up to Hip Organic or Kendamil are the exact same. Hip Organic, I can't remember which one it had. I think it doesn't have palm oil in, but it does have fish oil, or it's the other way around. And Kendamil doesn't have either of them in.
Okay.
So they're the only two difference. And Kendamil's produced in the UK nearby. So if you are using formula, people now I found are going towards Kendamil for that reason. But overall, they meet very strict nutritional.
Because I think as well, it's Optimal was people put that above the good.
It's exactly the same. Genuinely, it's exactly the same, except the price point, which is more expensive.
All formula must meet these standards to be sold legally in the UK. And this ensures that babies get basic nutritional needs, but it does not replicate breast milk's complexity. The origin of the regulations, it's based on scientific consensus from the EU and the World Health Organization, largely focused on preventing severe nutrient deficiencies and ensuring infants survive and grow, which they do on bottle formula. They were developed decades ago, and formula was primarily used as a survival alternative, not as a first choice feeding method. So these regulations guarantee nutrient levels, but absolutely do not replicate bioactive components in breast milk like antibodies, enzymes, hormones, or live cells. They can meet these standards, yet still be inferior for immunity, gut health, and long-term development. And then just because these brands comply with regulations, companies can market these small differences, such as Kendamil with the organic milk, as if their product is superior, which is quite misleading, really. Current implications, most UK formulas are similar nutritionally, despite the marketing claims, and choosing a premium formula like Kendamil may not give any meaningful advantage over standard formula. The organic label doesn't actually change the core limitations at all. What that says to me is, apart from one or two maybe using an organic milk base, they're all pretty much the same.
They're all, regardless of labelling, they've all got to be 99.9% organic anyway.
Okay.
It's part of the standard.
Right.
It's them different ingredients that change what's in those two different formulas, like I mentioned before, but they've all got to be primarily organic regardless. So picking one or the other is neither here nor there. I mean, I don't know if you go on, do you go on about specialist milks as well? Like,
Not really, no. We can't touch.
I'll just mention it quite quickly because that is the only thing that they can market, and that's what people need to be aware of. They're not allowed to market first stage formula milk anymore. So that's illegal in the UK. So you will never see like an article or TV advert for first stage. You will always see it for follow-on milks or comfort milks or anti-reflux milks, all of these problems that they cause that then they try and fix. And it's just a reformulation of the same product. It's either thicker or it might have a little bit less lactose in or whatever it may be. But overall, not lactose, that's good.
I think that's the constipation.
They do read that though if they go on
In the
But yeah, in general, the truth is they're creating those and bringing those products to market because they can market to you about them products, they can advertise them, and that then makes you think you need a follow-on milk or you need a specialist.
Is there any difference between follow-on milk and first milk?
No, so it's a reformulation of the same product.
Okay.
In all, like when you look across the board, they're all exactly the same. You might have a different like amount of certain things, but overall, a reformulation of the same product.
So with regards to follow-on milk, how old would that be marketed to?
12 plus.
So really, they could just
Up
have
to 6
milk?
months, but yes, they could just have milk, absolutely. And if you still wanted to feed your child, because some follow-on milks are things do from 6 months, but if you still wanted to feed your child even formula from age 1, you still can. If that's what you were doing, you don't need to switch from first stage.
So there's really
do anything. It's just no need. It's just because they can want this.
Wow. So I'm going to quickly break down what is in formula. So pick up a tin in the supermarket. This is how I work up to it. And this is the thing where I think people think I'm being judgy or I'm demonizing formula feeding mothers. I'm not. I'm genuinely like, what the fuck is in this formula? I read it. I was shocked. And then when I bring this up, women get very triggered because it's unfortunately pointing out that maybe what they're feeding a baby is not the best. And it's not a place of judgment. It's just a place of fact. So I'm going to quickly go through the ingredients that are in the milks. And obviously this is a podcast that is not just pointing out problems. We're going to give you solutions and help as to how you can avoid doing this, how you can make your breastfeeding journey more successful. And then also, if you have chosen these options, it's not something to beat yourself about. It's just when you know better, you can do better. And it's just being informed. And then, if you can share this podcast, let other mums know this is what's actually going in these milks. And it's coming from a place of love. And I want your kids to be healthy as fuck, not just,
Bad.
Yeah. So we'll start with powdered skim cow's milk or whey protein concentrate. So this is processed, dried. It's completely different protein structure than human milk. And also my issue when things, so it's, it's from the milk, it's an extract of whatever the milk. What were those cows treated like? How were they living? What were they injected with? Were they on antibiotics? Were they given steroids for growth? We do not know how those cows were living before their milk was taken.
And just a quick addition to that, cow's milk's made for baby cows, so their primarily casein protein is easy for them to digest with their different stomachs and digestion and stuff like that. Whereas human babies primarily find whey protein easier to digest, and so that's the main protein in human milk. So you do find that you have a lot more digestion issues with formula-fed babies compared to breastfed babies as well.
Yeah.
And that's because of the differences.
Yeah, so they're having gas or colic.
Colic, yeah, which is no one knows what it is, no one. But it's just uncomfort, really discomfort, should we say. So we get a lot of like colic, gas, discomfort, crying, inconsolable crying, reflux, all these issues.
You see these babies, you'll be like propped up and given like Gaviscon.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is not normal.
And if you've been there, you know how hard it is.
Horrific.
That absolutely horrific.
Yeah. So the next ingredient is usually vegetable or seed oils, which are very inflammatory. So palm Alain oil, soy oil, and rapeseed, sunflower oil. These are there for fat content. But palm Alain oil in particular actually reduces calcium and fat absorption. And these affect and alter gut health and stool consistency. They are very inflammatory by nature and nowhere near the fatty acid profile of breast milk. And these contribute to weaker bone development and it's a less healthy weight gain. They'll also add carbs in, so sometimes lactose, sometimes corn syrup solids, or maltodextrin, which I know is very irritating on the stomach. And they can actually spike blood sugar, which can affect insulin resistance later on. And then they'll also add in synthetic vitamins and minerals. These are just added to tick boxes. They are not bioavailable in the same way that breast milk vitamins are, and your baby does not use them with the same efficiency. And then also, they've got emulsifiers, stabilizers, fillers, so these will keep it shelf stable. They are not to nourish your child. So I'm going to touch a little bit on Kendamil, because have you found the same? People think that Kendamil is like better than
they do for those ingredient changes that I mentioned before. But what needs to be made clear is every single formula is an ultra processed product. And I don't know if you come onto this as well at some point, but no matter which formula brand you use, every single bit of evidence in the world in every single country, there is higher rates of all-cause mortality in infant fed with formula versus an infant fed with breast milk. So that means sicker, iron. Later in life as well, it's a lifelong obesity. There's all of these different things due to the ingredients that are in formula are causing lifelong health complications. And the saddest thing is we are probably in a health crisis in this country in general. We can't, because of the state of our food system and all of the other systems that we use, we can't fully trace where these health issues are coming from. And it's becoming so normalized, because as soon as your baby is born, they're then exposed to ultra processed foods, and their diet is staying in that ultra processed
lifestyle, isn't it?
Like that, and that's what they're then used to. So then they're getting ill, and that becomes normal because everyone's doing the same thing.
It's like what's normalized?
It's
like autoimmune asthma, eczema, acne, ear infections, and people are like, well, my kid's fine. Who knows? So I'm going to cover Kendamil a little bit. So I'm just going to go over the basic ingredients. So it's a lot less than what I've seen when I go to supermarkets. I will pick up some formula tins and I'll have a read. Kendamil has a lot less ingredients, but I'm going to cover why maybe it's not as good as what we are led to believe. So it's got organic whole milk, organic demineralized whey protein, organic skim milk, organic vegetable oils of sunflower, coconut, and rapeseed as a base, along with essential vitamins and minerals. It doesn't actually specify all of these vitamins and minerals. This is straight off the tin, but they'll say minerals like vitamin D3, iron, pyrophosphate, zinc sulfate, and a blend of nucleotides. So as Stevie said earlier, cow's milk proteins are harder to digest for babies, sometimes triggering allergies, sensitivities, stomach upset. And the demineralized whey is processed to reduce the mineral content, but it loses some of its naturally protective protein found in whey. We'll also move on to the fact that they contain sunflower and rapeseed oils. So they are very high in omega-6 fatty acids. And breast milk naturally contains omega-3s, particularly DHA, which is critical for brain, retina, and nervous system development. Now, excess omega-6s actually promote inflammation in the body, and they contribute to inflammatory conditions such as eczema and gut issues. They can potentially impair neurodevelopment by competing with DHA for incorporation into brain and retinal tissues. Essentially, formula oils overload babies with the wrong facts while delivering the fats that their brains and eyes actually need. So the side effects for these fats include reduced fat absorption, which you'd think would be the other way around, diarrhea and loose stools, and actually altered gut microbiome development. So using sunflower, coconut, rapeseed oils as a fat base means less good fat incorporates into the brain and retinal tissues, which is vital for obviously brain development and eyesight development. Potential for cognitive and visual development deficits if supplementation is not adequate or well absorbed. Possible inflammatory programming from excess omega-6. And long-term, this can actually influence metabolic programming, potentially affecting fat metabolism, insulin response, and inflammation later on in life. And then I'm just going to move on to the minerals. Let's call them minerals, but they're not minerals. So the first one, which they'd say iron pyrophosphate, which is basically an iron supplement that they put into the milk. Very low bioavailability. It's a cheap synthetic iron salt, and babies' bodies do not absorb it nearly as well as natural heme iron that is found in breast milk. It's very poorly absorbed, and these iron salts tend to sit in the gut, which cause constipation, gas, black stools and discomfort. Unabsorbed iron can also feed harmful bacteria in the gut, disrupt the infant microbiome, contributing to eczema, asthma, and low immune system. So how this compares with breast milk iron is low in quantity, but it's super efficiently absorbed, up to 50%. Formula adds large amounts of poorly absorbed iron, which is not the same thing at all and can actually cause problems, builds up in the tissues, causing inflammation. And then the next thing they add is zinc sulfite. So another cheap inorganic salt. Wash on the stomach can cause nausea, vomit, and diarrhea in high doses. And excess zinc can actually interfere with copper absorption, affecting immune and neurological function. And then if anyone didn't watch my live with Colin Quainer, where we talked about root cause protocol, the balance of copper in the blood is actually what helps the body use iron properly. So if zinc is blocking that copper absorption, then it's going to affect how iron is used, leading to anemia and stuff like that. So whereas matched against zinc in breast milk, it's bound to special proteins, it's absorbed very efficiently without needing massive doses. And formula relies on synthetic zinc salts, which can irritate the gut and are less bioavailable. So overall, even with that more premium formula brand, you can see the dangers of what is actually happening. And like you said, it's very, very processed. So formula has calories, it has fat, it has these minerals and additives, but it is a dead food. Unfortunately, there's no enzymes, there's no antibodies, no hormones, no living immune factors. Nothing is responsive to your child's unique needs. And as Stevie said earlier, the studies show that formula-fed babies are more likely to suffer infections, respiratory illnesses, diarrhea, ear infections, and hospital visits in infancy. And they also have a higher risk of SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome, aka cot death, high risk of obesity later in childhood, and even higher maternal health risk because the act of breastfeeding itself protects mothers from breast cancer, ovarian cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. And then, as you said, you're probably more experienced on this. The evidence does not say anything about colic because
we don't know what colic.
What is it? Yeah. But digestive discomfort is undeniably higher in formula-fed babies, and it makes sense that your baby's gut is designed for human milk, not processed cow's milk with seed oils. And then I'll just move a little bit on to casomorphins, which is the morphine-like peptides in cow's milk. So it's small protein fragments formed when casein, which is the main protein in cow's milk, is broken down. They are opioid-like, which means they can bind to opioid receptors in the body, very similar to morphine, but much weaker. And cow's milk, especially A1 beta-casein, contains more casomorphins than human milk. So the effects on an infant's stomach and digestion, it's harder for infants to digest. They can actually slow gut motility, which means the stomach empties more slowly. And then would you find this is exactly why feeds can go longer?
And so that's adding into the reason I won't just give them a bottle because then you do have a mango breakfast being feeds, but it's because the baby's digestion is overwhelmed.
Right. Okay. And then this leads to bloating, gas, and reflux in babies. And then this opioid-like effect can make infants sleepy or sedated. And then this interferes with normal feeding cues. And then we're going to talk about the link, or the potential link, can't say definite, but potential link between cot death and these casomorphins, because it's thought that they may depress the central nervous system, potentially affecting respiratory drive in vulnerable babies. And this deep sedation combined with digestive stress or reflux can theoretically increase your sudden infant death risk. Babies may sleep more deeply, sometimes missing signals to wake for feeding or adjusting position. Research is ongoing, but this is definitely a recognised concern for formula-fed infants. And this is exactly why human milk is safe for babies. It's safer for them and easier for them to digest. There's very few opioid-like peptides that are produced during digestion of human milk. Babies stay more alert to feed properly and respond to their environment. And human breast milk supports gut maturation, immune health, microbiome development, which are all reduced SIDS risks. What are the benefits of breastfeeding? I've got a lot of notes written here, but I feel like Steve,
I'll assess the notes and I'll see what I think. So yeah, all of them notes, from what I can see, are the right, but they are very much like, I'll say the notes in a second, but they're very much like, just on a basic level of like nutrition or like what it does for immune system or health. there's a lot to be said for what it actually does for your mother-infant bond.
I may have written more. I may have written more.
You have written more.
I have written more.
Okay, let's go back to the top and let's see what's here. So we've got antibodies, and this is one of the maddest things. Yes, formula's got to meet strict requirements, as we've mentioned, and to a certain level, it mimics, you know, what it's to its best of its ability, what, you know, the human milk does. However, human milk is live. It's a live product that we create and will respond directly to our child's needs, and you cannot replicate that in any shape or size. No way that you could possibly ever do it, because it responds to each individual baby, and your milk is for your baby. And so my milk, although it would be great for another baby, would still not be perfect for that baby because it's individual to each child. So it creates like lots of different things, but in general, anything that you've ever had in your body, so if you've ever had an illness, you've ever had, you know, immunity to any sort of disease or illness, your body will pass that immunity on through breast milk to your baby in the early days of life, through colostrum and breast milk and things like that. So antibodies are in there. But then that extends as well once your baby is older, and they may pick up little bits of bacteria themselves on the skin or in the environment as they're feeding at your breast. Different bits of bacteria will pass through their saliva through your skin, through your,
when a bit of a backwash effect into the nipples,
into you, and you will then say, okay, I'm gone, this baby's picked up some sort of crazy bacteria that we do not want in my baby child. So now let us create an antibody that will protect for that bacteria, for that potential illness. And it helps babies either prevent the illness altogether or fight it a lot quicker. So it'll, on that very next feed, produce antibodies for that real lifetime bacteria that your child just picked up. So if you've got other kids at home and you're now welcoming a new baby, you'll be fully aware that bacteria comes into your home all the livelong day, all the day. A new illness comes in from nursery or wherever all the time. And so to feed your baby and give them protection against all that bacteria is just a benefit that you can't.
Like medicine.
You can't even you couldn't be more thankful for something like that when you've got kids who illnesses on, like you don't know what it's like around the house. And yeah, obviously we've got stem cells, so repairing your body in real time is the job of stem cells. It's creating, it's from nothing. It determines what it needs to be in real time. We can't mimic that in any other format as well. Obviously hormones, and one of the things that we often think with formula feeding, and because of that sleeping and stuff in between feeds and going longer, we think, well, if I formula feed my baby, I'm going to get more sleep. But what we don't realise is because of the way that breastfeeding releases hormones in both mother and child, when you are feeding a baby, especially at night time, you'll release more melatonin, and more melatonin will help the baby go to sleep quicker, so it settles the baby quicker, and it'll also help you go back to sleep quicker after you've fed the baby. So you don't have that same level of awakeness that you would if you were formula feeding a baby. So you will wake up, obviously, to formula feed a baby. You've got to then make the bottle, make sure it's
I was going to say, it's like the thing of having to wait, your crying child wakes you up, but then you have to comfort that child while simultaneously going downstairs, putting a light on. Because I know back in our day when we were born, our mums probably made multiple bottles, but your guidance now
says make it up in real time.
So you've got to make that bottle whilst the baby's crying.
Yes. And the guidelines say make that bottle with hot water. So a boiling kettle, you are supposed to make that bottle with, and then try and cool that down rather than make it with lukewarm water, as I know many of the prep machines do, which just creates a problem for bacteria and everything like that. But I understand the market for them because
100%,
it's making life easier, but it doesn't in other ways. But anyway, so you've then got to do all of that, and then you're feeding the baby it, and then obviously you've got the problems with digestion and gas and wind and discomfort, so then you're there winding them and all of that type of stuff. And obviously sounds
like a lot of work.
Yes, it is. Some breastfed babies obviously need winding as well, but not to the same extent as formula fed babies. So although it seems easier, you actually have a lot more work to do, and you're then a lot more awake. And then it's more difficult to fall back asleep in between feeds. Formula fed babies will still feed in the night. Like it's not like abnormal for that to happen. So it's not just breastfed babies that feed in the night, you will get both. So hormones, and there's many, many more as well that will help you bond with your baby and feel that connection with your child. And it does, you'll know if you've had like a stressful day, that feed at the end of the day is much for you
I was
as
going
it
to
is for
say,
the baby.
I've heard a lot of mums say, and I know mums who have had horrendously stressful lives, and they say that breastfeeding is like a form of meditation.
Yeah,
They say this strange,
it's
is it the oxytocin?
Oxytocin, yeah.
And they say, and I know women who've been in very abusive relationships, the partners, this and that, and they say, when I feed that baby, it's like I just go,
It does, yeah.
I can't.
You'll sit, and if you are already a mother listening to this and you've got other children, you will know overstimulation. You will be aware.
I don't have children, and I can't even imagine having little people.
Yeah, it's a wild ride. It is a wild ride. Overstimulation is real. Sitting down to feed that baby for 15 minutes takes that away.
Does it?
Completely and utterly. You feel like a wave of like warmth coming over you. You know that feeling when you just feel like,
like some people might compare it's like that, like the warm feeling of like an alcoholic drink, maybe.
like potentially, yeah.
Like that's just calm.
I
like
can see that connection with that, you know, that one, maybe that glass of wine makes you just like relax, that first drink. Yeah, it's similar to that, where you just think, oh, right, let it all go, and you do feel that warmth and that calmness, and that's all the hormones as well. That's oxytocin, obviously, as we said. So you've got all of that going on, and it is, that for me is amazing as a benefit. Obviously, then we've got all of the other stuff like these. I mean, I never ever get technical with this type of stuff, but you've got the best ingredients in your human milk to help your baby's gut bacteria, the baby's microbiome. Like the whole thing is then impacting in your long-term health. And as a nation, as a world, even we've only just begun, one of them, to understand what the microbiome is and the role that it plays in health. And that is now, you'll see it everywhere. It's
the buzzword, isn't it?
Gut health. Yeah, gut health. Yeah. It's everywhere. But that's because, I mean, marketing companies just jump on any new thing. But it's because we're only just beginning to understand it. So a lot more people are now talking about it. And obviously, NHS has had this right. That's usually the case for everything. And so your microbiome is protected with bacteria. It gives you all of the good bacteria to fight off the bad bacteria to give you lifelong health, which is what more can you ask for your child? Obviously, you've got better digestion with it, we've already said, because it's easier protein to digest. The enzymes that are in it help you digest it. And we've said your milk changes throughout the day to respond to your baby. And it does that throughout the months, throughout the years, in every single which way. If your baby's having brain development, it will boost all of the items that it needs to learn new information, process new information. If it's a hot, sunny day, your breast milk will contain more water.
Yes, it's amazing.
So that your baby's not dehydrated. And formula can never, it literally can never. It can never. It can never mimic what breast milk can do. And that is the takeaway. And that's why, although we've said, you know, that line you've said that we don't agree with fed is best, obviously fed over starving.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But we cannot say that just feeding your baby is best, because it's hugely superior.
And this is not an opinion. The science, just science, biology.
And I say this as a person who's given formula to my older two kids, and which I'll come on to and talk about my story. But I don't see this with judgment at all.
No.
Because I've been where you are. I've lived, if you're listening to this, and I have a different formula, I've been where you are, and I've experienced it myself. And I understand all of the things that you're feeling. But still, I can sit here and say breastfeeding is best.
I think it's the thing of not being triggered. And if you are triggered, have a look more internally why you're triggered, because this is like, although people think, you know, I'm controversial on this, but everything's coming from a place of love to be like, I want you to be informed, because once you're informed, you can make better decisions, and the health implications for yourself, your baby, just like you think of how many lives could have been saved in developing countries, poorer countries, if breastfeeding. I know there's a film called Tigers, which is about how Nestle, the conglomerate Nestle, went after poor mothers in India, where they gave out free formula to sales reps who were dressed as nurses to say formula was superior, and all the rich women were doing it.
It was Africa, but
the thing is India. Basically, then these women's milk dried up, and they didn't have access to clean water, and babies were dying. And that is how
it was actually the leading cause of formula feeding, because even causing infant death in those countries, because women were then desperate. They had to feed the child. They were watering it down. Already like bacteria filled water. It wasn't clean, it wasn't sterile. And these babies were then having the awful combination of malnutrition and diarrhea.
Yeah. Oh.
And they couldn't survive.
And this is literally, and the way I talk about the pharmaceutical industry, big food, big milk, it's all money making to separate us from our natural wisdom. Like, how amazing. You can grow a baby and feed a baby with your body. And it also, even I've seen mums who are suffering from eating disorders. I've seen mums who are malnourished themselves. And while it's not optimal, your body will literally take from itself to feed your, like, it will give everything to a baby. Not that I recommend that.
That's not good. Obviously, we'll sacrifice, and that's not intentional, but we do it intentionally as well as part of our caregiving. But women and their own brains and everything will give everything to
even
child.
Did you know breastfeeding mothers, which I am up in arms about, the breastfeeding takes fat from your butt. I'm not happy about this. Like, we need to do some research into this, because I'm not happy about my ass disappearing.
I find the weight loss thing very individual.
Right.
Very individual. And like, some women will lose so much weight breastfeeding and look amazing. And you'd be like, wow, how have you done that? And others do not lose that fat stores because they need the fat stores to maintain the feeding of their child. So I know women who've lost weight when feeding, and I know women who've kept that. And
I'll be saying big mama
the minute they've stopped feeding. And I don't know what the difference is between the two. Do you know what? Maybe it could be nutrition. If you've got loads of nutrition in your own body, maybe your body will give it all. So maybe stop feeding yourself so well when you're breastfeeding the child in the future.
No, I want to keep the butt.
Yeah, but the opposite is true. Yeah. Maybe if you've got all the nutrients, then it'll be like,
give it all away. Okay, yeah.
If you haven't, maybe it'll keep all your fat stores.
Oh, I don't know, but we're going to look into this.
We'll look into this. We'll get back to you. Episode number 2.
And then also, just moving on to some of the benefits, I think this is one of the lesser talked about sides of benefits for mothers.
Yeah.
Faster postpartum recovery. Yeah. If you've had I'd say a physiological low intervention birth, you are going to recover faster postpartum. It's going to get that uterus down faster. It's going to lessen your postpartum bleeding. And long term, it actually lowers your cancer risk, better long term heart and metabolic health, and a stronger bond with your baby. And none of this is opinion. This is fact, yeah. And also lower rates of postnatal depression. 100% fine. Well, I was going to say, can we touch on as well? I think a lot of people will suggest just give them a bottle. It'll make your life easier. But then when women do give up their breastfeeding journey sooner than they ever planned or wanted to, it actually contributes to poorer mental health.
Shall I use my story at this point? Because this will explain that perfectly.
Yeah.
So I have breastfed all 3 of my kids, but only exclusively breastfed the last one through knowledge, education. You know, as you said at the very beginning, like, you don't know what you don't know, and then once you know better, you can do better. And I got to that point with my 3rd child, but with the first 2, I was filled. I had a lot of misinformation. I don't know. I was probably disconnected from what I expected from motherhood, and I was all fine prepared for the birth, but I didn't know what to expect. I didn't think from motherhood, and no one really around me had kids, and so I was on my own in that respect. And this is exactly what happened to me. So I had the most amazing physiological birth. I had it with all my kids. It was fantastic.
And this was before it was trendy.
This was before it was a trend, yeah. This was 11 years ago. And I came away from that birth and I was on the biggest high of my life. And it probably changed the trajectory then of my life from that moment. And I should not have been a candidate to suffer with low mood or anything like that, because I had the most amazing.
So perfect birth.
Perfect birth, yeah. So I then went on to think, well, I'm just going to feed my child because it's just normal. It's what you do. You just put them on the boob and ends off. And to be honest, that is what you do. And there's a lot of that is true. But when I put the baby on the boob and I was not prepared for normal behaviour of that baby, which we come on to talk about, I couldn't understand why this child seemed so unsettled, so unhappy, constantly wanting to feed. That then in my brain made me think, I'm not making enough milk. So then I thought, and then people around just as they tell you, formula's amazing.
Just put a bottle in the mouth and
just this man. And in your vulnerability, you start to let them thoughts creep in, and people will say to you, well, I can help you if you struggle, and if it feels really hard and demanding on you, because it does, then I'll give them a bottle and you can sleep or you can rest.
And when you were pregnant, did you say, I'm going to breastfeed?
Yeah, so I probably done what most women do. I'll breastfeed if I can.
If I can.
Yeah.
If I can.
At that time, yeah, that's probably what I did. If I can. Like, I did do that. And most of you listening to this probably doing the exact same thing. So I did that, and then you do automatically fall into that trap of maybe I just can't. You can, it's very rare not to be able to breastfeed. And I was in that trap of then thinking, well, it might be easier, you're vulnerable already, you're tired, and you've got all of these things that are going on around you, and you don't feel like it's working because the baby doesn't seem happy. And that's what we then associate with, is it we expect a comfortable, happy child. And when they're unsettled and screaming and wanting to feed constantly, you think it's something that you're doing wrong. You've internalized that as a mother, and you think, and that's supposed to be working, especially if you don't know about baby behaviour, you don't know about breastfeeding and initiating milk supply and everything like that.
And also just society of what we expect
babies to do, because they've been in some sort of opioid thing based on that, which I never really knew until right now. But yeah, it puts them in that sleepy induced, like the overwhelmed digesting this formula milk. Like when we just had a big Christmas dinner, we know what that feeling's like. You know, sit on the couch and you're like, oh. And that's basically what's happening to a child when they're having formula fed. So then you give them that formula, but obviously looking more satisfied.
You look happy, don't you?
Yeah, and I did that, and then you think,
so I'm wrong.
Be working. What I'm doing must not be working. And then you don't realise, if you don't know much about breastfeeding at that time, that when you give that formula bottle, your body goes, okay, well, we need less milk now. So that baby then misses the feeding cues, as we've talked about, misses the next feed because they're overwhelmed with digestion, and your body creates less milk. So then the next day, you're trying to feed them, and then they are unsettled even more because they haven't got enough milk then. They're screaming at you to make more milk, and you've given them formula so that you're not making that milk the next day. And so then you give them another bottle, and then you're in that top-up trap. And I ended up in that top-up trap, not realising that it was going to be that. I thought it was going to help me, but it doesn't. It puts you into a top-up trap. And then I ended up then with less milk and no milk to actually feed the baby. And my breastfeeding journey come to an end probably around between 4 and 6 weeks. I can't remember exactly when now, it was 11 years ago, but it was around that time. So it wasn't like late in. It was
how soon did they introduce the bottle?
Would have been probably within the first week. Within that first week, it would have been, I can't remember exact days and stuff like that now, but it would have been within that first week. Yeah, first few days is just, it was probably about day 5-ish, because when you get them weighed and stuff like that, it would have, yeah, because they lose weight, and they all will. They will lose weight. So that would have happened. She had a bit of jaundice as well, which was then they said to me, and I remember my health visitor saying to me, which is wrong, but she said, you've got a big baby there, you'll be struggling to feed her.
Even that one,
it's wrong. So in my mind then, it just added to all my fears that I wasn't making enough milk because I had this bigger baby, and I couldn't meet her demands. So formula would have met her demands, and it tied in with all of my vulnerabilities that I was feeling in that moment as a new mom. And so I offered a formula, and obviously ended up in that top-up trap, and then I stopped feeding, and the actual grief and guilt that I felt was next level. I cannot describe it other than it was a deep, deep grief. And I think this is where we'll get triggered from. I think it's this point, because some of us are really in tune with our bodies and understand what that's coming from. And I'm a big, like, analytical thinker. I overthink probably everything, but in what I think is a good way, because I
was going to say, you don't come across like that.
Yeah, I don't overthink in a bad way. I overthink in like, how do I understand this? What's happening inside me? What's happening with my thoughts and feelings and in my body? Not in a way of a panic,
awareness.
Stress. Yeah, awareness more so. And so for me, I was looking into all of that and trying to figure out why I felt the way that I felt. And I did feel guilt for giving up breastfeeding, but I'm aware that it was far from giving up breastfeeding. And I think what might happen for a lot of women is they don't feel that connected to why they feel the same way. The awareness may not be there. And so for that person, they feel triggered when someone says, well, breast milk's better. And they're like, well, I've got a minute now. Fed is best. My mental health suffered X, Y, and Z. And they're pinpointing it all together through what I think is subliminally inside their body, subconsciously, guilt, feelings of guilt, because their hormones weren't getting what they were supposed to get from bonding with their baby,
like a feedback.
Their baby, yeah. So I think that triggering feeling a lot of time does come from internalized guilt that women may not even be aware that they've got. Because I know I felt it. I felt hugely guilty for not being able to continue feeding my baby, and I kept that guilt for years and years and years. So much so that when I had my second baby, you would think I'd do the opposite. You would think I'd be like, right, I'm going to feed it up. But I never. I was like, still within that victim mentality of like, oh, like I felt so guilty. And I was trying to justify still why I didn't feed, and more so saying exactly what you said before, like women will go, it's best for my mental health, and I was trying to do all of that.
I think justifying to yourself
and myself why I didn't feed, and I'd done the exact same thing again. I didn't do any antenatal education with breastfeeding. I didn't really get into the knowing of it, and I just fed the same way. I started breastfeeding and just fell into that same.
I think it's as well you had another child to look after at the same time as well. Do you think that contributed to it or not really?
No, I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say that it did contribute to my decision. No. I think it was just pure denial. I was just in that denial phase of like,
did you still do it if I can?
I probably was worse. I probably thought, I probably can't.
No.
Yeah, I probably was like in the viewpoint of already going into it completely wrong, thinking I'm not going to be able to do this. If it's as bad as last time, if it's as hard as last time, then I'm just going to give up. I probably went into it more with a defiance of like, as if I didn't care and protect myself.
Like it might happen, it might not.
Type of attitude. And then when I fed that baby, I'd done the exact same things, and it sort of was proving me right. And if you know anything about human nature, let's prove ourselves right. And so in that moment, it was like, yes, see, I knew that was going to happen, and it sort of pacified me for a little bit. I was like, okay, yeah, this is right.
Like it's like it happens again, so it's not me.
So it's not me. I was right. You know, I just can't. I just couldn't do it. It was just, you know, it wasn't good for my mental health. I'd done all the same things that probably all the other women are doing and going hard. And I wouldn't say I was triggered by other people breastfeeding at that point, because I probably took myself away from the feeling of it completely altogether. It was only as we went through that journey with my second child and how awful the feeding journey was with him. He ended up with, well, what they said was cow's milk protein allergy. It wasn't in reality. And I honestly think it probably never is in most cases. I think most of the time it is poor digestion. They can't digest that formula milk. It was everything that we've talked about there. Inflammation. He was red from his head to his nose. He was sweating. He was screaming, crying. Discomfort I've ever seen in any baby. It was heart-wrenching, like genuinely heart-wrenching. I'd be pushing him, but bouncing him up and down, and trying to keep him comfy. I was holding him so much, and like my friends would come to visit me with me new baby, and I couldn't even speak to them. We couldn't hold a conversation because he was screaming that much, and he screamed, crying for genuinely no words of a lie about 9 months. It was the most horrific thing ever. And I obviously, the way that I said before, I analyse everything, I look into everything. I'm a huge researcher. It was only then that I started to actually put the two and two together and be like, this is actually a formula issue. This is because this child's formula fed. And I never had no proof of that at all.
You know.
But I know in my gut. Because Ivy also had issues. She didn't have anywhere near the same as what my second child did. My first child, reflux and all that type of stuff. Hers was definitely contributing to overfeeding, because if you don't know, as a society, we're overfeeding our baby formula. And I don't know if anyone's aware of that, but we're feeding formula babies now about 2 kilograms more per year than we were a couple of years back.
To do it as well with the breastfeeding, once a baby's latched, they can unlatch themselves, whereas the position of that they hold a bottle-fed baby, they can't. Well, they encourage pace feeding.
We do now,
but realistically, I don't think people know what it is. And also, I just think it's just not happening.
No, I don't think it's happening that much, to be honest. Unless you're already coming up against these problems and you see a GP or someone, and then they may mention pace feeding to you. But no, I don't think no one's taught how to formula feed as much as they're not taught how to breastfeed.
They're taught how to get the little scoop out the box or the box.
And if you look, obviously, as we've talked about, formula companies cannot market their product, but they decide how much to give your child in the back of a box.
Oh, yes.
And it's a lot more than the child needs.
Is it?
Which is a big problem, yeah.
One thing, and I forgot to mention on the intro as well, Stevie and I hosted retreats, pregnancy and birth retreat, how to have a more empowered birth. And one of the breastfeeding sections that you did, which I didn't actually know, Stevie talked about how you can have, let's say, 200 ml of formula and 200 ml of breast milk throughout a child's breastfeeding journey. The 200 ml will stay the same. They might drink 200 mils. This is it, for example. I don't know the exact amount, but they could drink
4 and 6 ounces. I don't know what that is in mils.
But say in mils, they have the same amount of feed, but that breast milk will change nutritionally. So it might be the same amount at every feed, but it literally changes composition. Whereas with formula, you've got to go up the amount because so it's that stretching the stomach.
It can't stretch the stomach. Breast milk, you can never overfeed a breastfed baby. and you can't give them too much. They'll only take what they need, and as you say, the amount doesn't go up in volume.
The composition that changes for their needs.
needs.
The bottle-fed babies, you've got to keep going up and up and up and up. And you think, with regards to when you're older, with like in portion control,
Yeah.
you know, overeating, are you ever full? And then also, what's it signaling to the brain during feeds in a, I don't know, whether it be like an energetic, spiritual way of constantly stuff into the stomach? What's it doing for later on feeding?
Yeah, when you think about it, obviously, if you're feeding a baby and there's stuff to the brim and that gives them some sort of feeling of satisfaction or comfort, then you're constantly going to get
It's going to dopamine. Oh, eat the chocolate, eat the chocolate.
That, comfort feed, get more food, and yeah, a lifelong, you could imagine.
Maybe that's why I'm addicted to Kinder Buenos now.
Just safely, just to go back to it, to what I was saying is that guilt did come from my breastfeeding journeys, and I did feel like it was a benefit in my mental health at first to stop breastfeeding, and then it's only when I realised actually the difficulties that I was having. I had insomnia, by the way, formula feeding. Because,
really?
Yeah, because I couldn't get back to sleep. It was exactly what I said before. I was up making bottles and I could not get back to sleep after doing that, so I was awake sometimes from 1 o'clock in the morning for a new baby. And then it was ridiculous. So I did go through mental health dips because I'd stopped breastfeeding. And that's what we were trying to point out, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Why we do think that women are convincing themselves that stopping feeding because it's challenging, it's hard, which it is. We're not going to sugarcoat that. Is going to protect the mental health, but through the hormonal changes. When you stop feeding your baby into grief, your body in lots of ways actually doesn't know where your baby's gone.
Really?
Yeah, like if you go back to a complete basic level,
Yeah.
obviously then bonding with them skin to skin will help your body realise baby's still there. We'll bond them with oxytocin, but it's protective against postnatal depression because of that bond. And when you sever that feeding, you sever part of that bond, and you do then open yourself up to suffering with postnatal depression. I know even when I fed Cole and stopped after, like, you know, you self-feed at about 14 months old, I still went through the grief of stopping that feeding. It's, yeah, you'll know if anyone's done it and stopped feeding, you have that hormonal drop after feeding, and it's a wild ride, yeah.
One thing with regards to the giving a bottle, it's like the Band-Aid effect, isn't it? It's for in this moment, it's going to relieve something for a quick fix, but long term, it's not helpful. And it is like, I'll give them a quick bottle just to settle them now, but long term, is it actually beneficial if you want to continue a successful breastfeeding journey?
I mean, it's hard, that one particularly, because I have known breastfeeding journeys with a quick bottle to completely save their journeys.
Right, okay.
So it depends on where you are in your mindset. So if as a person, you were like me and you were like, and my body's doing something wrong and I'm not doing enough, and if this formula will give them what they need, then that's going to put you in some trap, and you're going to end up thinking that's always better than you. So you're going to be in the wrong set of, the wrong frame. But if you are in a point where you are like, I am on the depths of despair here because I haven't slept and I physically cannot give myself for another minute to this child without just feeling like I'm going to drop to the floor, then sometimes in that situation, having a feed, just a bottle, preferably breast milk, but if not, I know women who've given that formula and slept.
Okay. And then
you've gone, okay, I'm strong enough, I'm powerful, I can do it. It's not failing.
It's not a failure, is it?
They don't see it as something that their body can't do.
Okay.
They're seeing it as a sensible choice to take a bit of a rest right now to give myself the energy to be strong enough to continue, so I'm not as vulnerable as I was without that sleep. So I do see, and I've seen that.
I was going to say, have you seen both situations happen with women?
Yeah.
Because obviously, with your hypnobirthing and stuff, you're probably in contact with a lot more women, and with the breastfeeding education you do. So have you seen women take them off?
Yeah, I've seen both. And I've seen both play out in real time. And I know that for some women, it has been the saviour in their journeys, but you've just got to be really careful of how you use it and when you use it.
So I think what I take from that is, if you use it as a tool to get the rest, have a break, you might be touched out, overstimulated. But if you're trying to use it as a solution, that's where it's...
Yeah, if you see the problem with your body, if you think your body's got an issue, it's not working, then you're always going to reach for something else that's going to fix what you feel like you're lacking. Whereas if you know you're not lacking anything, my body can make this milk and I know how it makes this milk and I'm aware of all of that process, but I just need to have a minute, I need to take a beat, then that can be a helpful tool, and I have seen that work.
Amazing. So I'm gonna go on to ask Stevie a few more questions just about breastfeeding, how to optimize your breastfeeding journey and what you can do. My last words on this is breastfeeding is literally the first act of sovereignty over your child. It is the first bond, it is the first communication, and it is the first blueprint, not only for nutrition and health, but for trust, safety, and connection. And I believe that formula is the opposite. And I feel like it's the commodification of nourishment and it's the monetization of broken attachment. I think it all starts in pregnancy, early pregnancy, where you're questioned and tested and monitored. Birth is intervened with, it's messed with. And then I think when they've finally broken you with all these interventions, they give you the solution in a bottle, which I don't think is optimal. But I can see how mums are falling into this trap, and it's not their fault because it's part of a bigger system that basically profits when mums are exhausted, broken, disempowered, and they are convinced, probably from even preconception, that their bodies need external help. They're broken, they can't do this, they can't do that. And I feel like when mums are traumatized, drugged, cut, even separated from the baby in them first few hours, they haven't got the fight in them to try and have the strength or the belief to continue on with that breastfeeding. And I think when it comes to, as we were talking about earlier off the podcast about capitalism, this is the negative side where it's just money.
Yeah.
Let's put them in a cot. Let's give them a bottle. Let's separate them. Everything is like designed to separate you from your intuition, your wisdom, and from your baby, so they can slide in with a nice little solution
to the problem they cause.
To the problem they have caused. So let's separate mum and baby. Let's give them a bottle, put them in a cot, keep them separate, do this, do that, and everything is just for cha-ching.
Yeah.
All about money. I'm going to move on. Stevie amazingly has, well, I'll start with your business. So Stevie is a hypnobirthing teacher, breastfeeding educator, mum of 3 home-birthed children. What else do you do?
Pregnancy yoga.
Pregnancy yoga.
Which I don't do very often, but yeah, pregnancy yoga. What else did I do?
Do
that upon request.
Only if you're a special one.
Yeah. To clients already who have built a connection with a day request me to be there to do that, I will do that as well.
So obviously we have gone over your breastfeeding journey and your birth journey. I'll just quickly go over the birth, because I feel like I said before, Stevie home birthed all 3 babies before it was fashionable. What put you in the mindset to be like, this is what I'm going to do with regards to the birth?
As I said before, I question everything I think, and I question why I think that and how I feel, why I feel like that, and all of these different things. So for me, I got pregnant with my first baby, and I got pregnant on the coil. So very unusual to get pregnant on the coil, not common. And so when I'd researched getting pregnant on the coil, which as I said, I researched. So when I'd figured out what it meant to get pregnant on the coil, I found out that I was more likely to have an ectopic pregnancy because of the way that the coil works. So I then went into hospital to check if this pregnancy was ectopic, and they said the coil's probably moved. This is not going to be a short story of the scan. So they said the coil's probably moved. Let me just check. So then they checked. Coil hadn't moved. They were like, right, it's in place. So yeah, you have got a high chance of ectopic pregnancy. They're like, do you want me to remove this coil now? I was like, well, you know, what are the benefits? What are the risks? So I was hypnobirthing before I even knew what it was. And they said, okay, well, you've got a higher chance of miscarriage if we remove it now, but you've got a higher chance of stillbirth if you leave it in.
Oh.
So it was like, wow, what is the lesser of 2 evils in there for me? And I didn't choose at that time that I thought, well, miscarriage would be the lesser of 2 evils. Neither was going to be great, obviously, I would be devastated, but I seen that as, right, remove it now because I feel like I could probably handle it better. So I removed the coil at that time, and then lived on, obviously, my nerves, because they were like, if you're going to lose this baby, it'll be within this X amount of days, can't remember what it was. They were like, just be aware that if you're bleeding, it's normal because we've just removed the coil, but if you're bleeding too heavy, it's not normal. So every time I went to the toilet, as you can imagine, I'm like, oh, I was just a ball of nervous energy. And they said, right, we're booking in for the scan in, say, like a week's time to check if the pregnancy is ectopic or not. So I go in for the scan, they check me, but pregnancy was in the right place, but they couldn't find a heartbeat. So then I was like, oh my God, they were like, it could be normal, depending on what, gestation this is. It could be normal to not have a heartbeat now. We can't see a sac. It could be that it's still waiting to develop. And then we'll give you 2 weeks to see if this is a viable pregnancy. So for 2 weeks, I'm waiting, thinking, is this viable? Is this not? Like, and I was again waiting on my nerves. And every single time I go to the hospital, I was overcome with like anxiety, horrible feelings, nervous energy. It just didn't feel good. And then obviously it was all fine. And so then I tried to move through my pregnancy like that. And every time I go, it could be for a normal scan, it could be for a normal appointment, and I'd just be filled with all of that horrible feeling. And that was my first sign that I didn't probably like hospitals that much. I think I really like these places. It doesn't make me feel safe on a nervous system level. And I think what we need to understand is we've been conditioned to think hospitals are safe as a society, but it's not what we've been conditioned to think. It's what in your body feels safe. So when you get there and you're like, oh, well, why do you go to hospital? You feel sick because you're unwell, something's wrong.
Or in my experience, I go to see people who are very ill or died.
Death, illness, 100%. So even from your ancestral view, if you think of it that way, you still hold all them feelings from previous ancestors and stuff like that. And for me, it was a nervous system feeling. I'd go in, I'd just be like, overcome with this horrible feeling. And I just didn't feel safe in there. And so as I navigated my pregnancy then, I chose to do a hypnobirthing course myself. And when I'd done that course, and it was like, birth works on safety and you need to feel safe in order to even allow your body to birth, I was like, well, I've got a lot to overcome if I'm going to birth in hospital. And for me, it was as simple as that. I was just like, well, I just won't. That was honestly it wasn't a big, massive, like, overthought decision. It was just like, it's not, but I won't go there then. And I started to look into birth and how it works best. And I was like, it makes total sense for me to birth at home. I haven't got all of that to overcome. And whenever you get two types of people, and I always say this, you get the people who go, oh my God, I went to hospital and X and Y and Z happened and they had to do this and they had to do this. Thank God I went to hospital. Or you get, oh my God, I went to hospital and they did X and Y and Z. And oh my God, why the hell did I go to hospital? You get two types of people. Yeah. And I was that second person. I was like, why did you get up? Like, you put all that done. Why did you go there? It's like if you got food poisoning in a restaurant, you wouldn't go back.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
It's the thing. It's what is a cognitive dissonance, where it's like you'll see the reason in something, but you just keep going back and doing the same thing, expecting a different result.
Yeah, I found it bizarre. So I was that second viewpoint of just thinking, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, all that shit happens there. Like, what? Why would I go there? Like, I didn't see all my feelings. All I knew, everything I learned was just pointing to me to stay well away from that institution. So I just chose to hang with it. It was as simple as that. People thought it was mad. Not gonna lie, didn't tell many people because I didn't need anyone's validation. Like,
that's a good bit of advice as well.
Yeah, like, no one needs to know.
No, just say, oh yeah, I'm going to the hospital, have your baby, and then
you don't even have to say that because they'll assume that you are anyway.
Yeah.
So you don't even actually have to have that conversation. They'll just assume that you are.
Yeah.
You just don't correct them. I told obviously the people who matters and the people who wanted to be there. My husband's amazing, supportive. Anyway, he is very much trust me with my own choices for my own body. He was just saying, yeah, whatever you want to do, I'll trust you. So there was no backlash from him at all on any of my choices. My mum at the time was a bit like, you're not, because she was thinking, again, societal conditioning about home birth. So I just sat and had a conversation with my mum and I said to her, these are the benefits, all of this type of stuff, everything I'd learned. And she was like, right, okay, it makes sense. And I trust you and you made your own decision and I'm going to be there for you. And she got on board when she had reservations at the time.
She had them.
And yeah, she didn't let me know any of them. She was there, she's fully supportive, fully on board. And now she would tell every man.
Oh.
So that every woman.
It's so funny. Is it the same when you work with couples and the dads are a little bit on the fence, but once you've experienced your first home birth and it's been beautiful, they'll never go back.
Yeah, I've had two clients who've had home birth with the first and have gone on to have hospital birth. Neither of the women wanted to choose it. The partners said, new partners or partners who maybe didn't feel, because they're not connected to obviously what's going on in the body. And the partners have said to the women, I'd rather.
Guys, this is a lesson. Don't do that. Don't do that, because it's not their vaginas.
To be fair, no, one is you have to give birth and one did have a straightforward physiological birth in hospital.
Okay.
So, it wasn't bad or anything. But yeah, they're the only two people I've ever known in the history of the world, I think, to have had a home birth and then chosen.
I feel like the partner,
not like through reason, to like chosen to go somewhere.
Yeah, that's great. And it's been to help someone else's feelings about it.
What they would naturally desire.
Wild.
But yeah, home birth, it's just the best thing ever.
You did it 3 times?
I did it 3 times, yeah. I absolutely love it.
Would you do, obviously, you know, if you had another baby, home birth again?
100%. I would die and I had to go to hospital, genuinely. Cole, like theirs was transverse up until 34 weeks. And I knew this myself because me and Abby both did 15 minutes and then maternity assistant took me.
That's a podcast for another day.
Just as, yeah, she was life. So I knew Danny wasn't in an optimal position. So at the time I was like, oh, he's transverse. And I trusted my body. I was like, yeah, he's going to move, it'd be fine. But I knew he was transverse. And so I was like, I'm doing everything that I can to make sure he moves. Because if anything like that happened to me, I think I'd be heartbroken. I would be heartbroken.
I'd be like, knock me out.
Yeah, I had to have a C-section though. I'd be heartbroken. Yeah, I'm doing heartbroken because I love getting birth. I love the feeling of it. Obviously, it's intense. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's challenging. Challenges you beyond belief. It's supposed to. Really. It's life, isn't it? It's life. It's supposed to challenge you. You're supposed to rise to that challenge and come out at the other side and being like the strong ass mother that you need to be. Like, I genuinely believe it's part of the journey. For me, I was just like, I will be devastated if I have to have a C-section. So yeah. So the thing is, I know this is not breastfeeding related at all, but the transverse issue, they'll say your baby's transverse. I wonder when they tell women your baby's transverse, if you'd have let that baby just get into the position, they would have, unless not always, but 99%. The only time I'd say a baby would not move positions if they were unwell and not physically able to. I know it's like related to breech. If the baby's unwell, if they've got any syndromes, congenital defects, stuff like that, things to do with tone, sometimes Down syndrome babies can't flip. But I just don't think babies stay transverse. I think even if you get to 41 weeks and you go into labour, those contractions will move that baby. Yes, they will. I had a client who had a transverse baby and, oh my God, it traumatised her to death about, your baby will die if you go into labour at home and the arm comes, all this, awful. She was terrified. And so much so that they wanted her to be in hospital as an inpatient for, I think it was something like 3 days prior to giving birth, and she missed other child's birthday then because of this situation, and they convinced her to have the C-section. She had the C-section 3 to 4 and baby was head down when they done the C-section. Yeah, so heartbreaking, awful as well as that. But because Cole was 9.12 at birth and I knew he was going to be a whopper, I did know he was going to be big in the others way, I thought, I want to get a bit ahead of this. So even though he was 34 weeks, in my head I thought his size isn't 34 weeks. Oh, he's going to be bigger, isn't he? Yeah, the average 34-week baby. So my baby's at 34 weeks, probably about 7. We probably are. So I was like, I felt like I needed to act on that. What did you do? Well, there's not a form of cleaning invasion. Oh, okay. Just I had a bit of combustion, like not at all. Did you feel a move? I moved it myself. Did you? Yeah, could have contributed to this cord issues. Never know. But I was like, I wouldn't recommend this, don't do this at home. But I was like, which is his head, which is his bum. I was like, done 5 minutes in him on the tail. I was like, I'm going to recommend this way. So I just like, gently, CB. Tiny, not obviously not major, but it just day by day, just be gently like trying to lift him. And then once I found he was in the right position, I was literally walking on like this, me 2 hands on the side of my bump constantly. Like, you're not moving. Like, you are not moving. Please do not move. Yeah, I was like keeping hold of him, and that one position was like, stay there. And he did. And he was fine. Yeah, so yeah. Right, so back to formula. So many, I feel like we probably covered this, but I've got a few questions that I just put on the end so we can get some answers to questions and some solutions. So many mums are told formula is normal and just as good. And why do so many end up switching too soon? What do you think is going on when mums they'll do that? Well, probably answered this before, the if I can attitude. Why do you think so many breastfeeding journeys are failing? So the if I can attitude is where it all starts, because society shows us that breastfeeding is really tricky. And so we talk primarily to other women, especially when we're preparing for birth, breastfeeding, anything like, raising kids. We speak to other women about that experience, which is fine. That's where we find an arm village, if you like, in our modern day world. And so we're talking to other people and they're like, oh, I've tried, but, baby was starved and couldn't get enough milk. And so I ended up switching to formula. And so that leads that woman to think, well, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. So they hold that view and they go into it the same mindset of, well, if I'm not making enough milk, then, I'll just formula feed because it's there. There's a viable option and it's okay. It's just as good. Why not? So we have that viewpoint to start off with, and without understanding the truth behind baby behaviour and how breastfeeding works and all of that, you will always believe that it's not working unless you know the signs truly of what initiating breastfeeding is like. You will genuinely be convinced it's not working because it is that difficult, because we live in society with formula fed babies where there's no complication about getting feeding established, because feeding is literally baby bottle done. So there's no worry about getting it established. You don't have to create the milk, it's there on the shelf, you buy it. So we've got that feeling of when your baby should feed, they should be settled and then they should wake up for another feed. And that only happens in breastfeeding after feeding's established, which is like between 4 and 6 weeks. So you don't get that. You will get it eventually, but you don't get that until that point. But if you're comparing it to a formula fed baby where feeding is already established, you will then compare it to your baby who is seemingly screaming, crying at the breast, wants constant feeding, and you'll think they must be starving because they're not settled like my friend's baby, or the formula fed society that we live in, we aren't able to compare. So unless you know and have experienced breastfeeding through either friends or other people, or you've done education, you've got courses, then you will automatically believe that there's something wrong with that journey because your baby will seem unhappy and unsettled.
Do you think even like subconscious programming, like it's just not normalized and we just don't see it and we don't know it?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not the norm, even though through millennia and the existence of humans and other mammals, it's normal.
Yeah.
But it's just not the norm.
It's not the norm in our society now. Only 1% of babies are exclusively breastfed to 6.
That's wild.
1%. So you can see why we don't see it. We don't know about it. We don't know it happens. Right? We know it happens, but we don't we're not aware of the differences between breastfeeding and formula feeding. Society is not set up for it. You go into any supermarket, you'll see multiple styles of formula, multiple tins, different product bottles, bottle washing items. You'll see everything for formula.
Does it all make money?
It makes money. But from breast milk, what can you sell? Maybe a pump, maybe a few breast milk.
You need one pump.
You need a couple, and most of us are using reusable ones.
And we all sell them on fast.
You can't make money from breastfeeding, and so it's really hard when it's just rammed down your throat that formula feeding's everywhere. And if it's everywhere, then it must be okay and it must just be normal, because we do, especially before you start looking into the world and the way that it works, you do think, well, if it's there and if they're recommending it and if it must be okay, because why would they recommend something to me that is?
They wouldn't sell us something that's bad for us.
And then you'd actually start to question everything and you realise that, oh my God,
they're trying to kill us. They're trying to kill us in every way. No, they're trying to make us really sick so they can make loads of money off us, alive for long enough. So that, it's just a money pit. Do you think the sexualization of women's breasts, stigma, has anything to do with it?
I do, yeah. I have even women who've come to me and gone, oh, it's disgusting.
Really?
I've had that. Oh, no, I don't want to breastfeed. Oh, no. Don't like that. Oh, the thought of it. No, they're my boobs. Yeah, I have had very sad conversations about the sexualization of boobs. And I understand that, because that's, again, what we've been led to believe in the society. But I expected it more from men, but I do hear it from women as well. I feel like in that respect, we're disconnected from the purpose of our whole body.
It's very disassociated, disconnected. But then I think as well, with regard to birth foods, everything is very disconnected. It's when you're in hospital giving birth, it's like the business end where the midwives are, and then you get your baby cleaned off and wrapped in a blanket and given to you. It's there's no involvement in, I even say women who, when they want to cut the umbilical cord, I'm feel it yourself. Don't wait for someone.
People don't want to
you made it.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
But it's that complete disconnect from bodies, everything. Everything is just here's something on a plate. You can do it that way. So with regards to, say, a woman was pregnant now, she wants to breastfeed, what are some practical, real steps that she can do to set herself up for breastfeeding success from day one? But I'm saying from day one, I'd say day one is preconception, pregnancy.
At least pregnancy, if not earlier. Best things that you can probably do is find other women who've breastfed, find a supportive system. So it may be a group on Facebook of people you've never actually met. It may be a WhatsApp group. It could be people that you know, which would be amazing if it is. You'd have a deeper connection with that. But if it isn't, find people anyway that have breastfed. That is your first step. get antenatal education on breastfeeding. This is not a shameless plug. You don't have to do it with me, do it with anyone.
Yeah.
But just get good antenatal breastfeeding education, because you need to understand how a milk supply is regulated, how that works, what that looks like in your baby's behaviour, so that you can figure out this is normal rather than this is not working. You'll think it's not working. So understanding that it's normal and that it's not a problem for you to fix is the biggest step you can possibly take, I think. And then also finding your peer support networks.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can get support postnatally as well, so that when you are in the depths of despair, because you will be there, you will have questions, you've got someone to ask them to. You've got people that you can reach. You've got, you know, professionals that you can say, is this okay? Can you assess my latch? Can you help me with, you know, whatever it may be? So yeah, they're the three things I'd say are most beneficial.
Because I was going to say, moving on to our next question, but I think that kind of covers it. The question is, when the latch hits, when your supply dips, when the world starts pressuring you to maybe just give that one bottle, what realistically can help mums push through without guilt or giving up? But I would probably say, like, support.
Yeah.
And also keep those bastards away who just want to tell you to give your baby a bottle. They think they're helping you.
Yeah, they
It's
do.
not helpful.
And again, it comes from their own, you're shining a mirror onto what they were not able to do, which is hard. So if you think about what I said before, when I felt guilty about not feeding, if I didn't work on myself and figure all that out and learn from that, I could have then said to my friends, "Oh, just give a bottle, you'll be fine. You'll be all right, you know, just give that
It's
bottle."
like they're uncomfortable seeing you suffer.
There's not even that. Yeah, they are obviously good, but especially if it's like mums, aunties, friends, things like that. They're going to be uncomfortable watching you do something that is obviously visibly hard. But at the same time, if they tell you to give a bottle, it justifies that they did that as well. So there's that also. We're all okay. We're all doing the same thing. It's fine to do that. And then if you do that, they're going to see I was okay as well to do that. And you then justify your own actions.
Because I suppose if someone sees someone breastfeeding fully, it just reminds them that they didn't.
Yeah.
If you could give every parent, every woman, some brutally honest advice about feeding their baby, what would it be?
Brutally honest advice about feeding your baby would be, this is brutally honest, it's not about you. It is not about you. It is about your child. It's about what's best for them. It's not about what's easiest or what's fit into a society. It's about you being that mother to that child, and your child's needs do come before your own. And that is that first lesson that you're probably going to need to learn as a mother, is to actually say, well, I am a little bit on the back foot now. Yeah, you do matter. I'm not going to say that you don't matter. This is where the village comes from. When you need that village, you need supportive people around you. As I've just said, go and find them people. But it's not about you, it is about your child, and you do need to set yourself up in the best possible way to have all of the support to support you, so you can support your child. That is what it's all about.
I think that leads into like that thing where you're saying you'll give that one bottle and fall to the top of trap because you're trying to make it about yourself and that band-aid. But in the long term, when you get that guilt, it ends up making you feel worse because you've just made yourself feel worse.
Through your hormonal drops and everything like that. And I do also think it's multi-layered because, when we're given that bottle, I know from my own experience, you know, as I said, I have been there, so there's zero judgment coming from me because I've lived it all, I've done it all. And so I know when I was given that bottle, I genuinely did also think that it was helping the child at the time. Yeah, I genuinely did think my body isn't making enough. And this is why I'm saying it's also the education to know that, your body probably isn't making enough at that point. That's why the baby's feeding on your breast constantly, so that the next day you make more for that baby. And that then keeps going until the fed gate is at like 4 to 6 weeks. That is normal. That's how it's designed. That's what it's supposed to do. So understanding all of that takes that part away, because then you know it's not my body. And if you are utilising formula, like we said before, or even a bottle of like express milk or anything, you're utilising it to actually truly be a saving grace. Yeah, I'm trying to be my best mother later. I'm trying to do all of these things that I can, but I can't do that and with an empty cup, as they say. You can't run on empty. You can't pour from an empty cup. So that's what.
You can't pour from empty breast.
You can't pour from empty breast. That is what that difference is.
Yeah.
Knowing that I'm not failing, I'm not doing anything wrong, but I actually do utilise. Maybe you haven't got that village. You haven't got those people to nurture you and support you. So then you utilise a break in what is maybe a formula bottle, and that's the difference in how it can help you versus how it can hinder your progress.
Yeah. So thank you. We're going to do a couple of quick fire questions, which I feel like are going to be helpful, because sometimes I, as a doula, I'm not I know a bit about breastfeeding, but I'm not, as educated and as knowledgeable as you are. So with regards to pumping, what are the rules? What are the guidelines? What do you find maybe your beliefs, education don't get aligned with the guidelines? What are the kinds of thing around pumping? Because it's like, I see pregnant women buying pumps to use from day one, and I'm like, ooh, but then it can help them. So yeah.
I think it all depends on your long-term goals of feeding. So if your long-term feeding goal is to exclusively breastfeed your baby, then what do you even need to pump for? Genuinely, like, I hated expressing.
Okay.
I hated it with a passion. It was the worst.
Did you use a hand or an electric?
An electric.
Okay.
One that slips into your bra. I just used that type because I wasn't exclusively pumping, so I didn't feel I needed a hospital grade one or anything amazing. I just needed to use it as and when, and it was such a chore, I couldn't bear it. And my plan was to just feed the baby like with my breast, so I didn't feel the need to pump unless I was like going somewhere, or I was out, or I was at work, or whatever it may be. Then I'd express for relief, or I'd express if I was going somewhere to maybe have a few bottles for somebody who would maybe doing childcare. So I'd use it in that respect. But then there's other people who do want to combi feed with express milk.
Okay.
So there's people.
So we'll just clear it up. Combi feed is a combination of bottle and breast.
Yeah.
But it can be combi feed with just solely breast milk, and you can combi feed with boob and bottle
that
formula.
Would still be considered exclusive breastfeeding as well. Even though it's a combination of.
Is it still called combi feeding now?
You would, I think you class it as that to understand pumping, yeah.
Okay.
But I think in general you probably would say my baby was exclusive breastfed.
Okay, with breast milk.
With breast milk.
Okay. Okay.
I think the phrases, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But you can combi feed, or can also be with formula. So people will do.
Because in combi feed for me, I have formula.
Yeah. So you can do both, but I'm primarily talking about the methods of feeding at this point. Then not the. So can be combination feeding with either a breast or a bottle. So some people will want this in their life anyway as standard. So if your breastfeeding goals are to have combination with breastfeeding of a certain time frame, maybe a day or a night or whatever it may be, and then of an evening or a morning you might offer some bottles, then what your long-term plan is needs to mimic your short-term plan as well. So if you're planning to introduce a bottle, say every evening, one breast milk bottle every evening and maybe every morning, then every evening, every morning you're going to want to pump to get that right time milk for the next day, to make sure that they've got that milk at that right time.
So
for the next day.
Should you, with regards to pumping, if you are wanting to give a night bottle, you need to pump night milk because of the hormones in it. So a lot of people don't realise this. Yeah. The hormones in the breast milk change. So the one in the morning will be less melatonin, which is the sleep hormone, and the milk produced at night will have more melatonin to help your baby sleep. So if you want to feed a bottle, say on a Tuesday night, you need to get milk, say Sunday, Monday night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then
it's why I feed.
Well, not only that, like, because you'd be feeding at the same time, or you'd pump
feed one and
you can do, and then obviously swap around, and then swap the breastfeed the baby on the other side and pump on the other side. You can do it like that, or you can express first, then feed your baby. There really is no right or wrong, but this is why you hate. This is why I hated expressing, because it just didn't make much sense to me in the long run, because I'd be like, so now I've got an express when I'm feed potentially having a break. Say for example, it's like you're trying to feed that baby a bottle every single night. So I've got an express tonight to give him a bottle tomorrow, but then I've got an express tomorrow to give him a bottle the next day. So I'm now expressing when I just could be feeding. So I'm not actually getting off to coffee.
No, it's like extra work
break anyway.
That moment.
So I didn't love it for that reason. I didn't see the point in it. I just thought it's just adding to me workload. So
as far as I know, when you are going to introduce a pump, it's advised that you shouldn't pump before 6 weeks, because you want to get that breastfeeding rhythm established and your milk supply established. Is that right?
Yeah. So that's the general rule. So the general rule is, until your milk supply is regulated, then don't add things in that will increase or reduce the amount of milk that you need to make. So this is why we say don't introduce formula within the first 4 to 6 weeks if you're going to plan to breastfeed long term, because the minute you introduce that bottle, the baby misses that feed at the breast, so then your breast doesn't make this right amount of milk that your baby would actually need.
Yeah.
So the same goes with expressing. If you're going to pump at the breast, then your body's going to go, okay, well, we need extra milk now.
You could have an
So
oversupply.
you could create an oversupply, yeah. So the plan is you feed exactly to your baby's demands.
Okay.
You cannot go wrong if your baby wants to feed. You let them feed. You can't overfeed them, as we've said, and your supply will regulate quicker if you just respond to your baby's needs.
Okay.
So that is the plan within the first 4 to 6 weeks, because it can interrupt the supply. There's other reasons as well, like if you're introducing a bottle in that time or a dummy, it can cause they call it teat or nipple confusion, which is basically, it's easier for a baby to get milk out of a bottle, much easier. So they're a bit, oh, well, we've got the making the best, and you can just give me that. I'll have that, thanks. So just from a need, like, a physiological need, you're just going to go, well, it's easier to do that. Like, everyone looks for something that's easier, don't we, in life? Babies are no different. And so they will probably, not always, because some babies hate bottles, as you have probably experienced if anyone's breastfed. Lots of babies go on to hate the bottle, but in those early days, they might favour it, and you're probably then going to struggle
to get them back on the
getting
boob.
to latch properly on the boob, not then the back on, but latch really effectively. So yeah, it's like avoid it if you can. That being said, we've just talked about if it's going to save your journey. If you're going to give up because you can't have that break, then it might be worth, doing it on the one-off occasion, but try not to make it regular. And then on the flip side of that, if you are planning to do something early doors, so say within the first, 6 weeks, say after like week 3 or something, you're thinking I would like to express or whatever it is, then whatever you do it every day. So if you were gonna express, say first thing in the morning after the feed, then do that every day, because then that will be your supply, that will be your norm. And then
I've had clients who solely pumped because of nipple pain, nipple issues, and they've only given bottled breast milk.
That is the hardest way to feed, I think. Oh my God.
It's like 2 extra work. It's like 2 jobs, isn't it? Because you've not only got to pump and you've got to feed them.
I just think, wow, hats off to you.
Yeah.
Genuinely, hats off to you.
So one thing that I think especially first time breastfeeders get, engorgement. What is engorgement, and how, before it gets to full mastitis, can it be remedied?
So engorgement happens at different times throughout breastfeeding journeys. Most common time it'll happen is when they say your milk comes in. So your milk is always in. So we need to understand that phrase as well, because what it means, basically, you go through lactogenesis 1 and lactogenesis 2. The lactogenesis 1 is your colostrum mix when you're about 28 weeks pregnant, keeps making all the way through. Even if you'd express that colostrum antenatally, you're then still going to have colostrum to give to your baby as much as they will need, because it's there until about day 3, sometimes up to day 5, depending on the way that you birth. C-sections sometimes are a little bit delayed, primarily. Sometimes inductions I've seen a delay, and because it's artificially produced oxytocin rather than your real oxytocin that you create. So yeah, you can have a delay, but it's between day 3 and 5 that your milk comes in, which is lactogenesis 2. And it's not that your milk comes in, it just changes to the different composition.
Just as your composition. High value.
So higher value, less nutrient density. The colostrum per tablespoon is like the most nutrient dense thing on the planet.
I've actually heard midwives go out in me, but it's not a big deal. Colostrum.
That's like licking up the floor. It's that much in the picture. It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing colostrum. It changes from colostrum then to your milk, which will be long term what you will use to feed your baby then. So that colostrum is like if you imagine it like a shot, think of it like a bit concentrated, like you have a shot of like all of the good stuff, everything. It gives you that boost.
I'm surprised it still probably is sold on the black market. You can buy cow colostrum, can't you?
Can you?
Yeah, cow's milk colostrum. No, legally, from where you can buy your raw milk, but not human colostrum.
I feel like it's slime.
Oh, it is 100%.
But anyway,
so yeah, we digress.
Yeah, you'll go back to the topic. So yeah, your milk changes then to the next amount, and at that day 3 or 5, whenever it's happening to you, your body doesn't know whether you're feeding 1 baby or 10 babies, and so it just goes all of it. So it either gives you a little bit too little or a little bit too much, or the right amount. It doesn't know. It just throws everything on the kitchen sink at it. And so sometimes at that point you've got too much that your baby would need, and so you've got engorgement. Then your breasts will feel really full and heavy. And the problem with engorgement is because your breast is so full and heavy and hard, it feels more difficult for the baby to actually latch onto them. So then that adds to the engorgement, because they're not emptying the breast and they're not taking the amount. They won't be emptying the breast if there's too much there for them either. So you've got that added layer. So engorgement tips for me, I would say, I don't personally love expressing for engorgement. I know a lot of people will advise that you will hand express, take a little bit off the breast.
Just because I've said that before, just to soften
the breast, which works. It does work, soften the breast, and then the baby can latch a little bit easier and feed more comfortably. So I can see the logic behind it. But I prefer reverse pressure, which is basically massaging the breast, like sort of backwards into the breast.
Okay.
It's about a baby to tell me to, which you can Google reverse pressure. But I think that then softens the breast, which then helps the baby latch, and it doesn't put you into the potential of making more.
So it doesn't simulate any production. Okay.
Yeah.
I think because I have spoken about this when we've had a client and she has struggled, and the reverse pressure technique was really helpful.
Yeah. It is individual as well.
Yeah.
It really is individual to the person. And you're not going to like cause absolute grief to your breastfeeding journey if you do hand express a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you will be okay with that. But it'll just maybe potentially prolong an engorgement.
Okay.
So it happens at those stages, and it can happen as well if there's been like a cluster feeding. But you'll if you've breastfed, you'll know cluster feeding's wild and it lasts a few days, but baby's like relentless. Trapped beneath the feeding baby, and it is relentless. And because they've fed so much to get what they need, then the amount that comes in then sometimes can be a little bit too much, and they can change from that. Same, it can happen again when you're introducing solids, when the baby's sick, anything that's going on which just interrupts feeding in any different way or change can cause engorgement. So reverse pressure would be my favorite thing for it. Dangle feeding is really, really good if you are feeling like that blockage. You can feel like there's a blocked duct or something come from that engorgement. And this is where it's gone to another level where you are feeling like there's a blockage or there's something going on.
Soreness.
So yeah, dangle feeding I think is really.
That's basically lying your baby on their back and dangle
down over you. Yeah, dangle feeding is really, really good for it. The jury's out as to whether we should use hot or cold compresses, and it changes and flip flops the evidence on it all the time. I think it's currently cold, isn't it? I think it's cold.
Cold. I've heard hot, and then I've heard hot and cold. I heard that it used to be just hot.
It used to be just hot. I think the evidence now is cold. I think they say use cold, and it's because they think a lot of the swelling and hotness of the breasts in engorgement is not because of actual milk. A lot of it is the surrounding fluids.
There's inflammation.
That inflammation, yeah, and that's why they're saying cold.
Okay.
That's what I think the up-to-date current advice is. And I just think cold will probably work better myself personally.
It's mad though, because then, with injuries and stuff, I started speaking to the guy who does my acupuncture, and you'd normally say put cold on an injury. And now he's like, no, put hot on, because we want things to flow through. So I'm like, which way do we go?
And I see that as well. I see that benefit. Yeah.
Because it softens things up and gets things moving. But yeah, okay. So with regards to, I think this is another thing, if you are birthing within a medical system, they will have an idea of how soon they would like your baby to latch and feed, so they can tick their box. I have seen is the Robert Thompson method, where they say they'd like the baby to feed within 3 hours and baby initiate to feed. What would your advice be? How soon after birth should a baby be feeding?
I mean, in an ideal world, baby wouldn't be separated from mother straight away, skin to skin, and would feed within the first hour of life. In an ideal world for me. And that just tracks with long-term successful breastfeeding journeys, feeding within that first hour of life. But I think skin to skin is probably more important.
Okay.
I would say. So even if you're in, worst case scenario, asleep for the C-section, and you are in recovery asleep, I would have someone hold that baby on your chest. I know that's against hospital policy,
but it's biologically,
it's going to be a lot better for you, especially if you plan on breastfeeding. So skin to skin for at least 90 minutes if you're planning on breastfeeding, uninterrupted as well. So it's not skin to skin of like, we'll stop, we'll wait, and we'll do this, we'll do that. No, it's 90 minutes consistent. And that does exactly what the Robin Thompson method says. To the way methods, and I haven't fully looked into it, I won't comment. But I know that with that skin to skin for the 90 minutes, what she's saying about letting baby initiate feeding and all that type of stuff is because they have these set of like markers and like bits of development phases that they will do in that first 90 minutes of life that will help them breastfeed. So it's like looking for the nipple, it's like rooting the breast, all that type of stuff. And that does give better successful breastfeeding journeys if they do those markers.
I think even just being left to let it usually sounds like if you've got the freedom as in physically unrestricted, to hold your baby, have skin to skin. It sounds like you've probably had a more positive birth experience anyway, which will help breastfeeding, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, the next question I've got is this will be a longer answer because I think, and we've touched on it a little bit, the discussion between normal infant breastfed behaviour versus bottle fed baby behaviour.
Yeah. Okay. So this is obviously where everyone's like feeling like it's going wrong. Like we've already mentioned this quite a bit, but infant feeding with formula will be already established, like I said before. So you're just feeding that baby. They're satisfied because the amount that they're getting is completely full, making them full, probably over full, overwhelming the digestion. So then they're going to sleep for like, say, 4 hours, which we've talked about the problems of that. And then they might wake up and then they'll feed again and the same pattern goes. So that baby will only initially seem more settled because then that leads to digestion problems that we've talked about, reflux, colic, all of that.
Yeah.
That doesn't come initially. If you're not right there yet, it does come after a few days if you have the formula, but it doesn't come initially. So you don't necessarily know that it's going to come. And obviously it's too late by then once you've done all of that. So that is what a formula fed baby will primarily do in those early days. Then a breastfed baby you'll put the baby on the boob and you will think, what's going on here? Because that baby will latch, will pull off, scream, will cry. You'll try and put them back on. You're sweating, they're sweating, everyone's chaotic. You're trying to put the baby back on. They'll feed for a little bit longer, then they pull off again. They'll scream.
It's just murder for the first.
Absolute murder. And you think, why are you pulling off? Why
it's right there.
They're going to go for it and they'll look all around. They'll be bobbing everywhere and they're not actually putting the nipple in the mouth.
Bobbing is the right word for that newborn head.
And they're not actually putting the nipple in the mouth and you're like, oh, like it's so annoying, it's so frustrating. And you think, okay, I've just fed them. They finally settled at this breast after screaming, crying, bobbing on and off for about a million years. They've then settled on the breast and they've been on there for about 45 minutes. So you think they must have an amazing feed. I can breathe a little bit. They finally fall asleep, take them off. You might lie down for a little minute. You might think you're going to get a little sleep and then the baby will scream, cry again like they've never been fed. And so in your feelings of like comparing it to formula, we're thinking, well, why? I've just fed them for 45 minutes. They mustn't be getting enough. But they are getting enough. It's just that their physiological like urges and needs are to be at the breast to make the right amount that they're going to need. But they grow and develop at rapid rates, newborn babies. And so they're growing and developing at rapid rates and telling your body to keep up with them at rapid rates. And so they will be unsettled and will feed again for another 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Like there is no...
Relentless.
It's relentless. You will think, there's no way I continue this. And it feels quite a lot. And once that happens, you then, if you don't know that that's going to happen and you're not aware that that is perfectly normal and part of the design, in those early days, if you're still there at 6 weeks, then no, something's not right. But if you're there in those early days, that is completely normal. And when you're doing all that and figuring all that out, if you know that that's normal, you can be like, right, okay, this is normal, biological, physiological infant behaviour. Call a spade what a spade.
It's like one of them things where you like, I know probably every single one of my clients goes through this. It's like so normal. And this is the trap where there's sometimes in those early days, the first couple of nights, you're desperate, everyone else is asleep and you just give them the bottle because it's just gonna pacify them. They're gonna be happy because they just don't seem happy. They're crying, the fists are banging the breast, and I'm like, it's all by design.
Every single bit of it is to stimulate your breast to make the right amount of milk. And it's all by design and it is all working, it is all perfect, but it feels very isolated.
Oh, and especially when you're recovering from birth, even if you have a textbook physiological birth, you're absolutely fucked.
I always say that myself. I have had 3 straightforward physiological births and I've never had a stitch. It's been amazing. My recoveries are fantastic and I am very, very thankful for that. I still, the depths of the night time when you're in those depths of postpartum and you're trying to feed the baby, I still think, wow, this was really hard. And I remember in my probably only recently when I fed, recently it's 3 now, but the third breastfeeding journey, when I was feeding Cole, I remember thinking, how do people episiotomies and just C-sections, how do they actually do this? Because wow, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. And I do truly understand how hard that must be for them.
Why the bottle's an option.
Yeah, I see it because I found it really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And I've had the best births ever. So
yeah, you can see why that option would 100%. That's the thing where we've said, like, we're never going from a place of judgment or shaming. It's just more like knowledge and education. But then this is even, it ties into having a better birth is all what? Knowledge and education. So then if you know more about how to have a better birth, you're going to know how to lessen the risk of intervention. And then you're probably going to have a better breastfeeding journey because it's
All connected.
all knowledge is power. Education. I think the one thing is like, especially what you just touched on, like that constant crying being, I know you say nap trapped, but it's like feeding trapped. Like, and you're like, this baby's been on me. Most mums haven't showered.
Yeah.
They haven't brushed their teeth. This is all normal, though, isn't it?
And I think like acceptance goes a long way. This is like the biggest thing. Once you accept that, okay, this will be my reality, not for long. This will be my reality the next month or two.
Yeah.
And I just have to honour this phase of life that I'm in and find ways of coping in that phase of life. So, for example, make sure that when you get up in the morning, you do get your shower and brush your teeth and sorted because you'll feel 10 times better.
Yeah.
So you'll do that. Make sure you've got snacks at hand, drinks at hand, you know.
It's like basics, isn't it?
Wherever you're watching the telly, you know, and things. And remember that it's also part of the design that you're supposed to sit and rest.
Yes.
And take that from ancient culture of actually we're supposed to rest, we're supposed to chill, we're supposed to be on this couch for the first month or so, or the bed. And so if you are doing all of them things, you're not lazy. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You should be doing that. The washing can wait, the cleaner can wait, hire a cleaner if it's in your budget, get someone to do it. Like when someone says, what do you need? You've had a baby, tell them that. Tell them I need someone to come and help me with the keeping on top of the house because I'm feeding the baby all day.
Yeah.
And so that's the type of support that you need. So they're the honest things that you should be doing when you prepare them.
It's like basic, like make sure you've it's like treating yourself like a small child. Have you ate today? Have you drank today? Are you clean? Have you been for a wee?
Yeah.
Like, because I think it's like partial to that breastfeeding journey as well is look after yourself. If you're malnourished and dehydrated, you're not going to make up to a amount of milk, are you?
No, not really. But you know what? Such a small part of it as well. So we don't want to really over complicate that side of it because obviously you need to drink loads of fluid. You will be so thirsty and stuff like that. But I don't want to overcomplicate.
That's like a smaller part, that's more just
self-care. Yeah, I don't want women to be like, oh my God, I'm not eating enough to make it. You'll make it. If you're feeding your baby responsibly, you will just miss out on the benefits of your own nutrition.
Yeah.
Which we've pointed out.
Yeah,
we don't need to get complicated about diet and stuff like that. I wouldn't say. Yeah. But obviously eat and drink.
But eat and drink just because you're recovering from giving birth.
You actually need to just for survival.
Yeah. The amount of mums who are just, I'm like, if you had to like, no, I had a biscuit. I'm like, go and eat some steak, please. Drinks on your no. I think you wouldn't waste the breast milk on yourself, would you? But if you could replenish yourself with breast milk, that would be great. One last one, which is more of a topic for a separate podcast because we could deep dive into this. Tongue tie. So many babies are being diagnosed with tongue tie. They're having a cut. Mums having issues with feeding, with latch due to tongue tie. Is there anything you can comment on that before we finish?
I think tongue tie is a really difficult one. I don't think we probably have looked into it enough as a society about why there's so many babies with tongue tie now. Is it just that we're now diagnosing it more? Is there an issue or something going on? I know that there's a link with prolonged folic acid use in pregnancy after 12 weeks. Folate anyway is more a better option. But if you are supplementing with that, you only need to actually do it for the first 12 weeks, like you say, don't they? And that is for the neural tube development. So when it comes to folic acid, folate, whichever one you're using, you don't really fully need to take that.
I'll just put it in here and say, if you listen to this podcast, you are forbidden from using folic acid. You're in our gang now.
You already don't anyway, but you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
Who's going to be listening.
I was going to say, I'll add a clean folate supplement into the show notes as well. And if you are eating a lot of bread, breakfast cereals have got folic acid, just be careful because these are all things that can contribute towards tongue tie.
Yes, they can contribute towards tongue tie, especially if used after 12 weeks. So that's something to look into and understand more as a society. Is it that prolonged supplementation of an item that is creating this epidemic of tongue tie? Is it now able to be monetized? Is that why
they get for each tongue tie cut on the? Let's look into that.
I think it's always 100 quid.
No, I mean the NHS subsidies.
NHS,
I'll have a look into that.
Look, there's obviously private companies as well.
Do you think, sorry to change it, do you think I'm trying to think, because we bottle fed our babies. Are bottle fed babies easier to feed if they are tongue tied?
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
we're seeing it a lot more. But I'm just trying to think, are breastfeeding rates going up from how low they've been slightly, or
Not that I'm aware of. I could look into it.
I'm just thinking because
Maybe potentially there's been a lot of intervention around, not advertising formula. And, in hospitals they're not allowed to give formula and things like that.
Yeah.
So potentially I haven't actually looked since like the 80s, 90s.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking when bottle feed
Yeah, I'm
come in,
sure.
tongue tie is not an issue really, is it?
Well, not really. It will still have an impact, but they don't need to use the tongue like they do when they're breastfeeding. And I also think, if they're not using that tongue effectively and not that big, something less genetic.
Yeah.
Like if I was then formula fed, I didn't use my tongue and I ended up with that still frenulum. No, what's it called? Frenulum.
I know. You might.
Maybe we'll figure that out. But if I didn't use mine, would that then be genetically passed on to my child? So stretch it and move it, because you can do exercises to release.
Well, I was going to say, I think it was like Victorian times where we started eating really soft foods and our jaw development went down and everything. So it could be like an ancestral generation. I don't know
how that's rejected in medicine.
Which?
That functional therapy.
Oh,
the jaw development is rejected.
It's because they make too much money.
Fully rejected. And I'm like, excuse me, it exists.
Snoring.
It happens to my 7-year-old. Like, I literally look at him and I think, right, an apple, he's a carrot. Let's get this jaw strong. Because he snores terrible. That adenoid, he gets recurrent tonsillitis, and this is all linked.
Yeah.
All linked. And people
they'll just reject it because we haven't got the studies.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to
we'll do another episode on that. But yeah, tongue tie. I don't know. It's a problem. But like, I have had breastfeeding journeys with tongue tie be successful as well, and I do think as well babies will adapt a lot to what their abilities are and what their needs are. And because you can do muscular work with that tongue tie, you can't stretch it. Obviously, if it's completely tied, then you're going to have issues because they cannot have that tongue mobility. But I probably wouldn't be able to say because I haven't got enough knowledge on it. But I think slight ones are probably not going to cause that big of a deal. And I do think it's more over
education.
It could be, or it could just be looking for problems that aren't there sometimes, because I think when baby behaviour is difficult like that, when they're constantly fussy, we're looking for a solution, whether it's if they got a tongue tie, is that why it's so hard? Yeah, is that why it is? If they got something else, is there something that we need to fix, problem that we need to solve, rather than understanding that it's just probably a biological norm? I think it's quite tricky, but I don't know. I don't never know enough to actually speculate why there's higher levels of it now. But then a few things that I probably can't.
I'm not educated on it enough. I know that I had clients where I've looked at a baby and gone, I can't diagnose, but that baby's tongue tied and lip tied. I just knew, you just like, even around, they get like sores on their face and not latching properly. And I think there's very obvious ones where you're like, without
then we'll need solving.
Yeah, so the egg did go and get his tongue and his lip cut, bless him. But again, I do think that we're confused by infant behaviour, and we may see a fussy baby who's maybe stimulating the breast as a problem, and we might want to fix that problem, and then we may correlate that with, they're a bit tongue-tied, it must be the tongue tie, instead of just normalising.
Do you know what I'd be interested to know? How many people pay to have tongue ties corrected and it helped? I'd love to know, actually. Was it like a game changer? Does it be like,
I'd say 50-50 from people I know. I know there's people who say...
I've never actually followed up on that question, really.
I think it's more just like from like seeing clients and be like, are we getting on since they got caught? And a lot of them are like, some of them are like, game changer, feeding's fine, and a lot of them are like, we're still struggling, and it's not really fixed. And then I wondered as well, could it be anything to do with, like, I know some of my clients use osteopaths, and they can be to do with modes of delivery. Even you'll say, like, some people go, my baby just prefers the left breast. I'm like, no, they've got tightness on one side and it's not comfortable to be on the right breast. And they're like, I'm like, yeah, it's not that the new baby will prefer it. They're both producing milk that they love.
One just produces more than the other.
Does it?
They do have different flows and stuff.
Do they? Oh, well, I'm wrong.
You do have a lazy breast.
Do you? I'd just be lazy all over. But it's like, just...
Oh my God, that's actually, do you have a lazy breast, or is it because the baby's always preferred that one?
So it's a self... And I think, I just don't think, because even like if they're draining one breast, so there's less milk in one, and the other one's
Yeah.
full and juicy.
Yeah.
They're going to go to
They're
the
gonna go
juicy
for that
one.
one, yeah.
And if they're rejecting the juicy one, do you know what I mean? So it's like things like that where I think there's just so many deeper issues. If you go and get, what is it, the cranial therapy, which helps, I've seen babies transformed overnight. And it's all to do with like muscle tightness. And if they are tongue tied, it affects the whole body. And the osteopath can, I just think there's so many things that could be an issue. And is it blamed on a tongue tie? Because it's 50-50 as to whether it's going to
help or not. Yeah. I mean, we'll have to do a deep dive into it.
Guys, if you're watching, leave in the comments if you've had a tongue tie. Like,
if it helped.
If it helped, did it help? Did it make any difference? But yeah, I don't know. Just all I know is stay off folic acid. Right. I think we're going to end there today. Thank you to Stevie for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I think we've gone through everything. So yeah, guys, thank you for listening to the Liverpool Doula Against the Grain, where we question everything and reclaim our power. Nothing in this podcast can be construed as professional advice. It does not replace the guidance of a trained professional. These conversations are here to spark curiosity and offer perspectives, not prescriptions. Always do your own research. And I will just end with Stevie is an amazing hypnobirthing educator and a breastfeeding educator as well. I am going to pop everything in the show notes, her website. Just tell us quickly a little bit about the courses you do. Do you offer anything online? The breastfeeding support you do. And we're recording this in September 2025.
I mean, don't see the year. You're not going to release in 2026, are you? You're going to be that late.
No, I'm hoping next when people listen in years to come, when they go through my whole back catalogue, oh, this was released back then, so it's relevant now. Because this is going to be my career. What have you got coming up? What courses?
Currently, I have got a hypnobirthing course running. My next one doesn't start at Proof Point. It doesn't start.
Is this in person? In Liverpool?
Or on Zoom. You can do it on Zoom.
Okay.
That doesn't start until the middle of November.
Okay.
Whatever the middle Wednesday in November is, I think it's do you know what? It might even be anyway, it doesn't matter. At some point in November, it starts. And that's the next Food Hypnobirthing one. And that's the last one for this year. So it's already, I think it could be 2 or 3 spaces left. So I'm not sure how many, but it's nearly full. And then I've got a pregnancy yoga course going on, which is a new
very
thing.
Nice.
I'm going to do birth education with it as well. So I'm doing the stages of labour each week. Do a different stage and a pregnancy yoga flow and then pregnancy relaxation as well. So that is October. That starts on the 1st of October for 4 weeks.
Okay.
But there's currently 1 space on it, but there's a girl who might not be able to come, so it might be 2 spaces on that one. And then I've got an online hypnobirthing course, which I'm in the present moment updating. I update it regularly, but I usually just add other videos to it. But this time now I'm
doing the full
overhaul. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's currently being updated, but that's still there. It's amazing. It's actually going to be this price only until it's updated, and then
Well, I was going to say, guys, I've got a discount code for Stevie's online hypnobirthing. So wherever you are in the world, you can download it. You get, how much did you get off? £5. You get £5 off, and it's only 30 quid.
Yeah.
Every single one of my
25.
Yeah. Every single one of my doula clients gets this course. And I'll put everything in the show notes. Thank you for coming in. This will not be the last time Stevie will be in, because we'll be talking about hypnobirthing.
Anything? Okay.
We just love it, don't we? Opening our mind to other things that we can't discuss on camera, because I'll get in trouble.
Yes.
Right?